Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome to the channel. I appreciate you taking the time to check it out. Today I have for you another Genre Makers episode, and well, today's genre is a relatively new genre to video gaming. Well, new is kind of relative in this case, at least in my mind, and we'll talk about that in a bit, because today I want to talk about Demon's Souls as it relates to what's known as the Souls-like category of games. We'll talk about how well received the first one was, what it inspired, and talk a little bit about earlier games that may have been a push towards this kind of game gaining popularity. So, if you have a moment, grab yourself a snack and a drink, and hang out a while as we go into the Souls series of games. Now, the concept of super hard games isn't really as new as some generations would think. Long ago, in a video game rental store far away, there were rumored to be games so hard that the average person couldn't beat them in a weekend. Yep, the reason some of the simpler games and older games were so stupidly hard and cryptic is because, well, they didn't want you to just rent the game for $5 or less and push through it in a weekend. That's really it. This not only kept players coming back to rent the games again for another shot at it, it also kind of helped push gaming magazines claiming to have all the details on the toughest games, where the best power-ups were, what techniques work against what boss stage, that kind of thing. Think of it like pre-internet YouTube, for lack of a better term. Now, as games progressed, things like checkpoints, save files, and other mechanics were introduced into the games, especially as technology advanced and more people were playing games with longer experiences. It also helped that rental stores were on the decline with the rise of online streaming services and digitally downloadable games. Developers were now more interested in making engaging experiences that were more balanced and focusing less on punishing gameplay. That isn't to say all games were this way. Ninja Gaiden for the Xbox, which many people would consider in some ways a predecessor to the Souls-type game, had fast-paced action and punishing gameplay, harkening back to the games of old. However, nothing quite hit the same as the levels of popularity and punishment as Demon's Souls did. Demon's Souls was developed by From Software, who released their first game in 1994, and up until this point was probably most well known for their brutally punishing Armored Core series. However, that was about to change, when in 2009 the company dropped its latest project, Demon's Souls. This was a PlayStation exclusive game that took the players into the dark world of Bolteria. This was a dark and unforgiving world that made even the most common of enemies a threat to the uninitiated. With each attack from them, enough life could be taken from the player, forcing them to start to carefully and methodically focus on the enemy's attack patterns and wait for the opportune time to strike. In many ways, harkening back to the pattern recognition games of old, with some of the same brutal and immediately painful consequences. Players would have the ability to choose from a variety of classes to deal with this level of difficulty, anything from sword and shield to ranged weapons like bows and crossbows, all the way to magic usage. What made the game interesting, though, is your ability to break out of your base style of gameplay and build into something almost completely different by the end of the game due to how much flexibility you had in your stat alignment. This gave players an almost unlimited flexibility in how they approach the challenges of this particular world. This deep build system, along with the dark, tragic story and over-the-top boss fights, many of which end up looking like a cross between something in a Monster Hunter and H.P. Lovecraft, hooked many a player for hours on end, pushing many of the gamers to their limit and beyond, many feeling driven either by pride or desire to see the end of this particularly dark tale. On top of this, it also had built-in online aspects that allow players to leave each other notes, or even read each other's games and kill them repeatedly, making it feel in many ways like a PvP MMO. This led to it receiving high praise despite its overly challenging difficulty, and in the end spawning off multiple sequels with Dark Souls, Sekiro, and Bloodborne. Many games would actually start to take pages out of the Souls series of games, incorporating those gameplay elements and basically terming the classification of a Souls-like into a genre of video games all on its own. These days you have any number of Souls-styled games, enough to make a video telling about its influence far beyond this brief snippet, highlighting its impact and influence on the video game culture and pop culture as a whole. Maybe someday I'll actually revisit that and dig deeper into this. However, for now I'd like to know what you guys think of this one. Do you think the Souls-like games owe a lot to older, hard video games of the 8-bit era? Do you think they owe anything to Ninja Gaiden? Do you think it had as strong an influence on gaming as a whole like I outlined, or was it pretty minimal? Do you even like Souls games at all, and if so, which ones? Let me know in the comments. And while you're there, if you don't mind, please leave this video a like. And if you see more stuff on my channel you like, consider following it. That actually helps me out a ton. Till we meet again though, thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. And until we meet again, happy gaming.